name's Mike Lanier. I'm with the law firm of Foster Swift Collins and Smith out of Grand Rapids. Shareholder with the firm, and I'm the practice group leader of our administrative and municipal department. So I was asked to attend the meeting tonight to talk about zoning. So I think the best way to probably kick that off is I'm happy to answer any questions that you have about zoning, your authority to zone the township. What you have now is, I understand, county zoning, and so feel free to ask me any questions you might have. I've been doing this for nearly 20 years, representing municipalities across the state, from the UP down to southwest and southeast Michigan, so I do a lot of traveling.
What is the easiest and most economical way to ease into it?
So as I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, somebody has submitted a petition to form a planning commission.
Yes.
So that issue will be on the ballot of primary, August election, I presume. Although you have to approve the ballot language, I don't know if you've done that. If you have, then you're timely for the August primary. So that's sort of a triggering event, at least in terms of the creation of the planning commission. And let's assume for a minute that the planning commission, the vote is in favor of creating a planning commission. That does not mean that you have to. That does not mean that you have to then enact a zoning ordinance. You can have a planning commission without an actual zoning ordinance, but it is a step that is required if you want to adopt your own zoning ordinance. And until and unless you adopt your own zoning ordinance, you are subject to county zoning. Once you adopt a zoning ordinance and it takes effect, the county is preempted from enforcing its zoning ordinance within the jurisdiction of the township. So, once the planning commission is formed, assuming it passes, then you would appoint members to the planning commission. You'd actually adopt an ordinance creating the planning commission, specifying the numbers, the duties, the authority, which is generally under the Michigan Planning Enabling Act. And consists of, generally 5, 7, or 9, typically 5 members are appointed to a planning commission. The planning commission then has a couple of different options, one of which is to immediately recommend an interim zoning ordinance to the township board. That interim zoning ordinance kind of skirts the normal process of adopting a zoning ordinance because it's designed by its nature to be interim. That is, to zone property for an interim basis up to a period of 2 years. During that time, the planning commission then is working on a more permanent zoning ordinance and refining maybe what they've already recommended in terms of an interim zoning ordinance. They also need to work on a master plan, which is a guide to land use, future land use. So that's a document that the zoning ordinance eventually has to be based upon. So you have a plan for development that looks out to the future, 10, 15, 20 years, on how the township may develop over that period of time. It's an important document, but it's not required for purposes of recommending an interim zoning ordinance. And to a large degree, a lot of that work may have been done already by the county in their master plan, so you may be able to borrow some components of the master plan as it's applicable to Gilmore Township. Once that happens, then you have to go through the Zoning Enabling Act in order to adopt it. So the Zoning Enabling Act sets out a process for doing that, where public hearing is required by the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission makes a recommendation. If the county has a planning commission, you have to send that ordinance to the county planning commission for review and comment. They have 30 days in which to review and comment. If they don't review and comment within those 30 days, then they waive their ability to do so, after which township board can act on that zoning ordinance, which you can either adopt as recommended by the planning commission, you can revise it, that is, you can amend it further if you want, or you can send it back to the planning commission with instructions to consider certain amendments within a specified period of time. Once that comes back, if that's what you choose to do, then the township board can act and adopt a zoning ordinance. After that, within 15 days of adoption, you have to publish a notice of adoption in your local newspaper. Within 7 days of that notice of adoption, a resident could file a notice of intent for a referendum on that zoning ordinance. 30 days after the publication publication of the notice of adoption. They have to go out and get signatures of registered electors in the township equal to 15% of the number of cast votes for governor in the last gubernatorial election. If they do that, then that ordinance goes on the ballot